In the year 2057, the world had changed in ways no one could have imagined just a few decades earlier. Technology ruled everything. Cities were filled with towering skyscrapers made of glass and steel. Cars floated silently above roads, and robots walked among humans as if they belonged there. People lived fast-paced lives, always chasing progress, always looking forward. But in this rush toward the future, much of the past had been forgotten or worse, ignored. Dr. Elena Voss was different. She didn't care about floating cars or holographic advertisements that blinked across city streets. Her passion lay buried deep beneath layers of dirt and time in the ancient ruins of civilizations long gone. A brilliant archaeologist with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, Elena spent her days uncovering pieces of history that others dismissed as unimportant. To her, every fragment of pottery, every faded painting on a cave wall, told a story worth hearing. It was during one such expedition, deep in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, that Elena stumbled upon something extraordinary. The site itself wasn't remarkable at first glance, a collection of crumbling stone structures half buried under centuries of snow and ice. Most people would have written it off as nothing more than the remains of some forgotten tribe. But Elena felt drawn to it, as though the ground itself was calling out to her. Her team worked tirelessly for weeks, chipping away at the frost-covered rocks until one day, they uncovered something that made their breath catch. Beneath the icy surface lay a massive stone monolith, taller than any human and covered in strange carvings. At first glance, the markings seemed random swirling lines, jagged shapes, and patterns that spiraled outward like ripples in water. But when Elena ran her fingers over them, she felt a faint warmth emanating from the stone, almost as if it were alive. "This isn't just decoration," she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "These symbols mean something." Back at camp, Elena pored over photographs of the monolith, studying the carvings with intense focus. Others on her team weren't so convinced. They laughed off her theories, saying the markings were probably just primitive art made by early humans trying to express themselves. Even her assistant, Gregor, shrugged when she asked him what he thought. "It's cool, sure," he said, flipping through a magazine on his tablet. "But it's not exactly groundbreaking, is it?" Elena didn't agree. There was something about the precision of the carvings, the way they seemed to follow a rhythm or pattern. She noticed that certain sequences repeated themselves, forming loops and spirals that reminded her of mathematical equations. Intrigued, she decided to test her theory, using advanced software designed to analyze astronomical data. She overlaid the carvings onto star charts spanning thousands of years. What she discovered left her stunned. The markings matched perfectly with constellations that hadn't been visible from Earth for millions of years, at least not since the planet's rotation shifted due to changes in its axis. It was impossible, yet undeniable. Whoever had carved these symbols knew things about the universe that modern science was only beginning to understand. Word of Elena's findings spread quickly, reaching ears far beyond the archaeological community. At first, it brought excitement. Journalists flocked to the site, eager to interview the woman who might have cracked open a mystery older than humanity itself. But soon, skepticism crept in. Scholars argued that the alignment could be coincidental, that Elena was reading too much into random scratches on a rock. Some even accused her of fabricating evidence to boost her career. The criticism stung, but Elena refused to back down. She was certain she was onto something big, something that could change everything people thought they knew about their place in the cosmos. And then, just as she was preparing to share her next round of findings at a major conference, trouble arrived. A group of men in black suits showed up at the dig site, claiming to represent an organization called The Veil. They spoke in clipped tones, their faces unreadable behind dark glasses. Without explanation, they demanded access to all of Elena's research and ordered her team to stop working immediately. When Elena protested, pointing out that the monolith was on public land and therefore not subject to private control, the leader of the group leaned close, his voice low and menacing. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he said. "If you keep digging, you'll regret it." Despite the threat, Elena stood her ground. She couldn't abandon the project, now, not when she was so close to unlocking its secrets. That night, unable to sleep, she returned to the monolith alone. Under the pale light of the moon, she traced the carvings again, searching for anything she might have missed. And then, as if responding to her touch, the stone began to shimmer faintly. Elena froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Slowly, she stepped back, watching as the glow intensified, revealing new details within the carvings. One section in particular caught her eye, a series of lines arranged in a circular pattern, surrounded by smaller shapes that looked like stars. It took her a moment to realize what she was seeing: coordinates. Her hands trembled as she jotted down the numbers, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this be a map? A message from another time, or perhaps another world? Whatever it was, it confirmed one thing. The monolith was far more than anyone had ever imagined. But before she could process what she'd found, a loud crunch echoed through the silence. Spinning around, Elena saw headlights cutting through the darkness. The veil had returned, and this time, they weren't asking nicely. Hard hammering, Elena grabbed her notes and ran, disappearing into the snowy wilderness. She didn't know where she was going, or what would happen next. All she knew was that she couldn't let them take the truth away, not now. Not ever. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the frozen landscape, Elena realized she was no longer just an archaeologist chasing fragments of the past. She was part of something much bigger, something that could alter the course of human history forever. Elena knew she couldn't face the veil alone. If they wanted to silence her, she needed all-eyes people who could help her understand the monolith's secrets and protect them from those who would misuse them. Her first call was to Dr. Amir Kasser, an astrophysicist with a reputation for being both brilliant and unconventional. Amir had once worked for a prestigious space agency, but left after clashing with higher-ups over funding priorities. Now, he spent most of his time tinkering in a cramped lab filled with blinking gadgets and half-finished projects. When Elena showed up at his door unannounced, clutching her notes and looking like she hadn't slept in days, Amir raised an eyebrow. "You look like someone running from the law," he said dryly, stepping aside to let her in. Elena didn't waste time explaining. She spread her papers across his cluttered desk, pointing out the carvings, the star charts, and the coordinates she'd uncovered. At first, Amir listened skeptically, leaning back in his chair with arms crossed. But as she spoke, his expression shifted from doubt to curiosity, then to outright excitement. "This is insane," he muttered, staring at the numbers. "If these coordinates are real, they point to a location outside our solar system." "Way outside," Elena nodded. "That's why I need your help. We have to figure out what this means before the Veil gets their hands on it." Amir hesitated. He wasn't the kind of person to jump into danger without thinking it through. But there was something about Elena's determination that made him want to believe her. After a long pause, he sighed. "All right, I'm in. But we'll need more than just you and me if we're going to pull this off." Over the next few weeks, Elena and Amir assembled a small team. They recruited Marcus Hawley, a grizzled ex-military pilot known for his skill in handling experimental aircraft. Though Marcus initially dismissed the idea of chasing ancient symbols into deep space, he agreed to join when Elena promised him access to humanity's first faster-than-light vessel, the Odyssey. Next came Priya Nair, a linguist specializing in alien languages. Priya had spent years studying potential extraterrestrial communication systems, though many in her field considered her work speculative at best. Still, she jumped at the chance to be part of something groundbreaking. Finally, there was HFY, highly advanced artificial intelligence designed to assist astronauts during long voyages. HFYs operated as both a navigator and a problem-solving tool, capable of analyzing vast amounts of data in seconds. While HFY lacked emotions, its logical precision made it an invaluable member of the crew. However, some found the AI unsettling, especially since it often sounded eerily human when speaking. With the team in place, preparations began for the journey ahead. The Odyssey was unlike any spacecraft ever built. Sleek and silver, it looked more like a futuristic bullet than a traditional rocket. Its engines utilized quantum propulsion technology, allowing it to travel faster than light by bending space-time around it. Though the ship had only been tested in controlled environments, the stakes were too high to wait for further trials. The night before launch, tensions ran high. Each member of the crew wrestled with doubts and fears. Marcus paced the hangar, muttering about how crazy this whole mission was. "We're talking about flying billions of miles based on squiggles carved into a rock," he grumbled. "What if we get out there and find nothing?" Priya tried to reassure him. "Even if we don't find anything, the journey itself will teach us so much. Think about it. This could be humanity's first real step toward understanding intelligent life beyond Earth." Amir chimed in, adjusting one of the ship's control panels. "And even if the coordinates lead nowhere, at least we'll know we tried. Isn't that better than sitting here doing nothing?" Elena stayed quiet, watching her team argue. She understood their concerns, but she also knew they couldn't turn back now. Too much depended on this mission, not just for her, but for all of humanity. The launch went smoothly, thanks to Marcus's steady hands and the HFY's meticulous calculations. As the Odyssey broke free of Earth's atmosphere, the crew gathered in the observation deck to watch their home planet shrink into a tiny blue dot against the blackness of space. For a moment, everyone fell silent, awestruck by the view. Even Marcus admitted it was beautiful. Days turned into weeks as the ship hurtled through the cosmos. Life aboard the Odyssey settled into a routine. Amir spent hours poring over star maps, cross-referencing the monolith's coordinates with known celestial bodies. Priya practiced decoding hypothetical alien languages, preparing for the possibility of encountering intelligent beings. Meanwhile, Marcus kept a close eye on the ship's systems, ensuring everything functioned properly. And HFY's monitored everything, offering suggestions and warnings whenever necessary. Despite the camaraderie, cracks began to form within the group. Marcus grew increasingly restless, questioning whether they were wasting their time. "We've been traveling for weeks, and all we've seen is empty space," he snapped during one heated discussion. "How do we even know we're going the right way?" "We trust the data," Elena replied calmly. "The monolith's carvings led us this far. They wouldn't guide us wrong." But not everyone shared her confidence. Priya voiced concerns about the ethical implications of their mission. "What if we're not meant to find whatever's waiting for us?" she asked one evening. "What if the monolith was a warning, not an invitation?" Her words hung heavy in the air, planting seeds of doubt in everyone's minds. Even HFYs seemed affected, occasionally pausing mid-sentence as if processing new information. Elena tried to reassure her team, but deep down, she wondered the same thing. Was she leading them towards salvation or disaster? Then, one day, the ship's sensors detected something unusual ahead. A faint energy signature pulsed in the distance, growing stronger as they approached. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, they found themselves orbiting a barren moon circling a dying star. The landscape below was desolate gray rocks stretching endlessly under a dim red sky. Yet amidst the bleakness stood another structure, identical to the monolith Elena had discovered in Siberia. The crew stared in disbelief as the ship descended toward the surface. Up close, the second monolith looked even more otherworldly than the first. Its carvings glowed faintly, pulsating with a soft, rhythmic light. It was as if the stone itself was alive, breathing in sync with some unseen force. Eager to investigate, Elena led the team to the artifact. As they examined the glowing symbols, a EGI scanned the monolith, detecting traces of an unknown energy source embedded within it. Suddenly, without warning, the carvings flared brighter, projecting holographic images into the air. The visuals depicted scenes of destruction, planets consumed by fire, cities collapsing into rubble, and beings fleeing across galaxies in desperate attempts to survive. At the center of each vision lay the same spiral symbol etched into the monoliths, surrounded by jagged lines. "It's a warning," Priya whispered, her voice trembling. "Something terrible happened, and they're trying to tell us." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the monitor, multiple unidentified objects appeared on the radar, moving swiftly toward their location. Whatever or whoever was coming, they weren't alone anymore. Panic set in as the crew scrambled back to the Odyssey. Marcus fired up the engines, while Elena and Amir frantically analyzed the incoming ships. Their sleek, angular designs suggested advanced technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. As the vessels drew closer, lights flickered along their surfaces, revealing rows of glowing windows and figures inside. "They're here," Elena breathed, gripping the edge of her seat. "This is it." No one spoke as the ship surrounded them, cutting off any chance of escape. Through the viewport, they saw elongated forms with luminous eyes emerge from the crafts, hovering silently in the void. The Zenari had arrived. The Zenari ships loomed outside the Odyssey, their sleek designs shimmering faintly in the dim light of the dying star. Inside the spacecraft, Elena and her team held their breath, unsure whether they were about to meet salvation or destruction. The elongated forms of the Zenari floated silently just beyond the viewport, their glowing eyes fixed on the human vessel. It was impossible not to feel small and vulnerable under their gaze. For a moment, no one moved. Marcus's hands hovered over the controls, ready to fire up the engines at a moment's notice. Priya clutched her tablet tightly, as though it might somehow shield her from what was coming. Amir stared out the window, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Even Aegis seemed unusually quiet, its monotone voice absent for once. Only Elena remained calm, her focus sharp despite the tension in the air. "They're not attacking," she said finally, breaking the silence. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already." Her words didn't ease the fear entirely, but they gave the others enough courage to stay put. Slowly, one of the Zenari approached the Odyssey, extending a long, slender appendage toward the ship. The gesture wasn't aggressive. It almost looked like an invitation. Taking a deep breath, Elena signaled for Marcus to open the airlock. Whatever happened next, they had no choice but to face it head-on. When the Zenari entered the ship, the crew felt a strange mix of awe and unease. Up close, the beings were even more striking than they'd appeared through the viewport. Their bodies were tall and thin, covered in smooth, iridescent skin that shifted colors depending on how the light hit them. Their eyes glowed softly, casting an ethereal light across the room. Despite their alien appearance, there was something oddly familiar about them, as if humanity had been waiting for this encounter all along. Communication proved challenging at first. The Zenari communicated using a series of melodic tones and gestures, none of which made immediate sense to the humans. But Priya, who had spent years studying potential extraterrestrial languages, quickly stepped forward. She activated her translation device, which began analyzing the sounds and movements. After several tense minutes, the machine produced a rough approximation of the Zenari's message. "Greetings," the robotic voice intoned. "We are the Zenari. You have found our markers." Elena exchanged a glance with Amir before stepping closer to the aliens. "We didn't mean to intrude," she said carefully. "We only followed the coordinates we discovered on Earth. What do these markers mean?" The Zenari tilted their heads, clearly intrigued by her question. Through the translator, they explained that the monoliths were part of a vast network created by an ancient interstellar alliance. This alliance had existed millions of years ago, uniting countless species under a shared goal, preserving peace and balance across the galaxy. The monoliths served as fail-safes, designed to guide civilizations away from self-destruction when the alliance eventually collapsed. As the Zenari spoke, images began appearing around them, holograms projected directly from their bodies. These visuals showed scenes of thriving planets, bustling cities, and diverse species working together in harmony. But then the images shifted, showing the same destruction depicted on the second monolith: worlds burning, stars collapsing, and entire civilizations vanishing into nothingness. The spiral symbol appeared again and again, always at the center of the chaos. "The spiral represents unity," one of the Zenari explained. "It is the key to survival. Without it, civilizations fall victim to their own greed and ambition." Elena listened intently, her heart pounding. Everything the Zenari described matched what she and her team had pieced together from the monoliths. Yet, as fascinating as the revelations were, they also raised troubling questions. Why had the Zenari waited so long to reveal themselves? And why had they chosen now to make contact? Before Elena could ask, Marcus interrupted, his frustration boiling over. "So you've been watching us this whole time?" he demanded, his voice rising. "You knew we were messing things up down there, and you did nothing?" The Zenari regarded him calmly, their glowing eyes unreadable. "Observation is not interference," they replied. "Each civilization must find its own path. We cannot save those unwilling to change." The statement sparked a heated debate among the crew. Marcus argued that the Zenari had a responsibility to intervene, while Priya countered that forcing change might do more harm than good. Amir tried to mediate, pointing out that the Zenari's knowledge could still help humanity avoid repeating past mistakes. Meanwhile, HFYs chimed in with logical analyses, further complicating the discussion. But the argument came to an abrupt halt when another group of Zenari entered the ship. Unlike the first arrivals, these newcomers carried an air of hostility. Their movements were sharper, their glowing eyes colder. Through the translator, they accused the humans of being unworthy of the monolith's secrets, citing Earth's history of war, environmental destruction, and inequality. They claimed humanity was beyond saving and insisted the mission should end immediately. Tensions escalated rapidly. The hostile Zenari raised their arms, emitting a low hum that caused the ship's systems to flicker. Alarms blared, and lights dimmed as HFY struggled to maintain control. Panicked, Marcus accidentally triggered a defensive mechanism, one of the Odyssey's experimental weapons. A burst of energy shot out, narrowly missing the hostile Zenari, but striking one of their ships instead. Chaos erupted. The friendly Zenari retreated, shielding themselves as their counterparts retaliated. Bright beams of light flashed outside the viewport, illuminating the barren moon below. Marcus scrambled to pilot the Odyssey away from the conflict, his hands flying across the controls. With the HFY's assistance, he managed to activate the quantum propulsion system, propelling the ship into hyperspace just as the Zenari fired again. Once they were safely out of range, the crew collapsed into their seats, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. No one spoke for a long time, each person processing what had just happened. Elena stared out the viewport at the streaks of light passing by, her mind replaying the Zenari's warnings. Had they misinterpreted the monolith's message? Were they truly destined to fail? Amir broke the silence first. "We can't let this stop us," he said firmly. "Whatever happens next, we owe it to ourselves and to everyone back home to keep going." Elena nodded slowly, determination hardening in her chest. He was right. They hadn't come this far to give up now. But as the Odyssey sped through the void, one thing became clear. Their journey was far from over. The answers they sought lay ahead, somewhere in the depths of space. And whether they liked it or not, humanity's fate rested in their hands. Back on Earth, news of the Odyssey's launch had leaked to the public. Governments scrambled to respond, some demanding immediate recall of the mission, while others called for transparency. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, fueled by fragmented reports of alien encounters and mysterious artifacts. Amid the chaos, the Veil worked tirelessly to track down the crew, determined to reclaim the secrets they believed belonged to them, unaware of the storm brewing back home. Elena and her team pressed onward, guided by the faint glow of hope and the haunting image of the spiral symbol. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, lay the truth, and they were determined to find it. The Odyssey hurtled through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming softly as it carried Elena and her crew further from Earth and closer to answers. The encounter with the Zenari had left them shaken but more determined than ever. They knew they couldn't turn back now, not when so much depended on what they might discover next. But as days stretched into weeks, doubt began to creep in. What if the monoliths were nothing more than warnings, meant to scare civilizations into submission? What if humanity wasn't ready for the truths hidden among the stars? Elena refused to let those thoughts take hold. She spent every waking moment analyzing the data collected during their meeting with the Zenari. Holographic images of the spiral symbol flickered on screens throughout the ship, a constant reminder of the mystery they were chasing. Amir joined her efforts, poring over star charts and energy readings, searching for patterns that might lead them to another clue. Meanwhile, Priya worked tirelessly to refine the translation device, hoping to decipher any additional messages embedded in the Zenari's melodic tones. Marcus, however, grew increasingly restless. The pilot's frustration simmered just below the surface, boiling over whenever something went wrong or even when it didn't. "We're flying blind out here," he muttered one evening as he adjusted the ship's course. "No destination, no plan. Just some glowing rocks and a bunch of aliens who can't decide if they want to help us or fry us." His words hung heavy in the air, echoing the fears no one else dared to voice. Even AEGI seemed affected, occasionally pausing mid-analysis to recalibrate its systems, a behavior Marcus pointed out was unusual for an AI designed to be infallible. "It's like even the computer doesn't know what to do," he said, shaking his head. Despite the tension, progress was made. One night, while reviewing the holograms projected by the second monolith, Elena noticed something she hadn't seen before. Hidden within the swirling patterns of destruction was a faint outline, a shape that resembled a map. When overlaid onto a galactic chart, it revealed a new set of coordinates pointing to a distant region of space. Her heart raced as she called the others to the observation deck. "This could be it," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. Another piece of the puzzle. Amir studied the map carefully, nodding slowly. "If we follow these coordinates, we might find something big. Something that explains everything." Priya frowned, her cautious nature kicking in. "Or we might walk straight into a trap. We don't know who or what is waiting for us at the end of this trail." Elena met her gaze, unwavering. "That's a risk we have to take. If we stop now, we'll never know the truth." With renewed purpose, the crew set a course for the new location. Days passed in tense anticipation as the Odyssey traveled deeper into uncharted territory. Along the way, strange phenomena began to occur. The ship's sensors picked up bursts of energy unlike anything they'd encountered before, and AEIS reported fluctuations in space-time itself. At times, the crew felt as though they were being watched. Though no other ships appeared on the radar, when they finally reached the coordinates, they found themselves orbiting a massive structure floating in the void. It was shaped like a ring, impossibly large, and covered in intricate carvings similar to those on the monoliths. Light pulsed rhythmically along its surface, casting an eerie glow across the surrounding darkness. As the Odyssey approached, the crew realized the structure wasn't just ancient, it was alive. "Is that moving?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's reacting to us." Against all odds, the ring rotated slowly, aligning itself with the ship. A gap appeared in its center, revealing a tunnel of shimmering light. Without hesitation, Elena ordered Marcus to guide the Odyssey inside. As they entered the tunnel, the ship was enveloped in warmth, as though the structure itself welcomed them. Moments later, they emerged into a breathtaking scene. A sprawling alien world filled with vibrant colors and towering crystalline formations. The landscape was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Rivers of liquid light flowed across the ground, feeding into massive pools that glowed softly. Strange creatures flitted through the air, their translucent wings catching the light like prisms. In the distance stood another monolith, larger and more elaborate than the ones they'd encountered before. Its carvings shimmered with intensity, pulsating in time with the rhythmic hum that filled the air dot as they stepped onto the alien soil. The crew felt a strange connection to the place, as though it recognized them. Elena approached the monolith cautiously, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch its surface. Instantly, the carvings flared to life, projecting holographic images that dwarfed anything they'd seen before. These visuals weren't chaotic like the ones showing destruction. Instead, they depicted scenes of unity and cooperation. Planets thrived under shared stewardship. Species worked together to solve problems, and the spiral symbol appeared everywhere, woven into the fabric of existence itself. "It's not just a warning," Priya breathed, tears streaming down her face. "It's a blueprint, a guide for how to live in harmony with each other, with the universe." But their awe was short-lived. As the holograms faded, the ground beneath them began to tremble. From the horizon, a shadowy figure emerged, towering and menacing. It wasn't Zanari, it was something else entirely. Its form shifted constantly, as if it were made of smoke and shadows. When it spoke, its voice echoed in their minds, bypassing language altogether. "You seek knowledge," it said, its tone cold and calculating. "But knowledge comes at a price." Elena stepped forward, her courage overriding her fear. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What do you want?" The entity paused, studying her with an unseen gaze. "I am the guardian of this place. I protect the secrets of the spiral. Many have come seeking wisdom only to misuse it. Prove yourselves worthy, or leave now." Before anyone could respond, the ground cracked open, revealing a labyrinth of tunnels beneath the surface. The entity gestured toward the opening, its meaning clear. They would have to face whatever lay below if they wanted answers. With no other choice, the crew descended into the labyrinth. Inside, they faced trials that tested their resolve, their trust in one another, and their understanding of the spiral's message. Each challenge forced them to confront their own flaws and fears, pushing them to grow in ways they never expected. By the time they reached the center of the maze, they were changed, not just as individuals, but as a team. At the heart of the labyrinth stood a pedestal holding a small, glowing crystal. When Elena touched it, Visions flooded her mind, images of Earth transformed by the principles of unity and balance. Wars ended, nations cooperated, and humanity reached for the stars not out of greed, but out of curiosity and hope. She realized then that the spiral wasn't just a symbol. It was a call to action, a reminder that survival depended on working together, not just as humans, but as part of something greater. As the crew returned to the surface, the Guardian awaited them. "You have proven yourselves," it said, its voice softer now. "Take this knowledge and use it wisely. The fate of your world rests in your hands." Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew prepared to return home. They carried with them not just the crystal, but a newfound sense of purpose. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Humanity was stubborn, resistant to change. But armed with the truth of the spiral, they believed they could make a difference. Unbeknownst to them, the veil had tracked their movements and was closing in. Back on Earth, chaos reigned as governments debated how to handle the revelations about the monoliths. For better or worse, the journey was far from over. But Elena and her team were ready. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The journey back to Earth felt both endless and fleeting. For Elena and her crew, the weight of what they had discovered pressed heavily on their minds. The glowing crystal, now secured in a protective case aboard the Odyssey, seemed to pulse faintly with energy, as if it were alive. It wasn't just an artifact, it was a message, a key to unlocking humanity's potential. But would people listen? Would they understand? As the ship approached Earth's orbit, the crew gathered in the observation deck to watch their home planet come into view. From space, it looked serene blue oceans, swirling clouds, and patches of green land. Yet beneath that beauty lay centuries of conflict, greed, and division. The contrast between Earth's fragile splendor and its troubled history filled them with a mix of hope and dread. Elena broke the silence first. "We've seen what happens when civilizations ignore the spiral," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the planet below. "They destroy themselves. We can't let that happen here." Amir nodded, his voice steady but tinged with worry. "But how do we make them see? How do we convince billions of people to change everything about the way they live?" Priya spoke next, her tone thoughtful. "Maybe it starts with showing them the truth. Not just telling them, but showing them. Letting them feel it like we did." Marcus snorted, leaned back in his chair. "Good luck with that. Half the world won't even believe us. They'll think it's some kind of hoax or conspiracy." AEGI's chimed in, its mechanical voice calm and logical. "Humanity has demonstrated resistance to paradigm shifts throughout history. However, shared experiences often serve as catalysts for change." Elena smiled faintly at the AI's analysis. "That will give them an experience they can't ignore." When the Odyssey touched down at a remote landing site outside Geneva, Switzerland, reporters and government officials were already waiting. News of their mission had spread globally, fueled by leaks from the Veil and fragmented transmissions intercepted during their voyage. Rumors swirled about alien encounters, ancient secrets, and warnings from beyond the stars. Some hailed the crew as heroes. Others accused them of fabricating lies to gain fame or power. But Elena and her team didn't have time for speculation. They knew the Veil was closing in, determined to seize the crystal and bury its message forever. Every second counted. Under heavy guard provided by sympathetic allies within the United Nations, the crew transported the crystal to a secure facility. There, they worked around the clock to decode its final secrets. When activated, the crystal projected holographic images far more vivid than anything they'd seen before. These visuals depicted not only the spiral's meaning, but also practical steps for achieving unity and balanced technological innovations. Sustainable practices, and strategies for resolving conflicts peacefully. "It's a roadmap," Amir whispered, awestruck as he studied the projections. Everything we need to fix our world is right here. But time was running out. Agents from the Veil infiltrated the facility, disabling security systems and cutting off communication with the outside world. Armed guards stormed the building, demanding the crystal be handed over immediately. Elena and her team barricaded themselves in the lab, knowing they couldn't hold out for long. "We can't let them take this," Elena said firmly, clutching the crystal close. "If they get their hands on it, they'll twist its message, or worse, destroy it." Priya glanced at the monitors, displaying global satellite feeds. An idea sparked in her mind. What if we broadcast the message directly to the world? Bypass governments, corporations, everyone. If enough people see it, they won't be able to suppress it. Amir frowned, skeptical. "That's risky. We don't know how people will react. What if they panic? Or, worse, reject it entirely?" Elena met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. "It's a risk worth taking. Humanity deserves the chance to decide its own fate." With seconds to spare, the team hacked into a network of satellites used for emergency broadcasts. Using EGIS's advanced algorithms, they amplified the crystal signal, ensuring it reached every corner of the globe simultaneously. As the transmission went live, the holographic images appeared on screens everywhere: televisions, phones, billboards, even car dashboards. Billions of people stopped what they were doing, transfixed by the glowing spiral and the visions it conveyed. At first, there was confusion. People argued, questioned, and dismissed the images as elaborate hoaxes. But as the message unfolded, showing scenes of cooperation, harmony, and progress, the skepticism began to fade. Social media erupted with discussions, debates, and calls to action. Protesters took to the streets, demanding change. World leaders scrambled to respond, torn between embracing the message and clinging to old ways of thinking. Meanwhile, chaos erupted inside the facility. The Veil's agents breached the lab, storming in with weapons drawn. Marcus stood his ground, using makeshift defenses to buy the others time. Priya and Amir worked feverishly to ensure the broadcast continued uninterrupted, while Elena held the crystal tightly, refusing to let it fall into enemy hands. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, help arrived unexpectedly. A group of rogue scientists, activists, and former members of the Veil, who had grown disillusioned with the organization's methods, burst into the room, overpowering the attackers. Among them was the defector Elena had encountered earlier, who revealed that he had secretly been working to sabotage the Veil's operations from within. "You're not alone," he told Elena, his expression fierce. "There are more of us who believe in your cause." Together, they managed to fend off the Veil's forces and escape the facility. By then, the broadcast had ended, leaving the world to grapple with its implications. In the days that followed, unprecedented changes began to unfold. Wars halted as nations agreed to negotiate peace. Corporations pledged to adopt sustainable practices. Communities came together to rebuild ecosystems and address inequalities. Though challenges remained, the shared vision of the spiral inspired millions to work toward a better future. Back on Earth, Elena stood atop a hill overlooking a transformed city. Skyscrapers shimmered with solar panels, streets buzzed with electric vehicles, and parks thrived where concrete once dominated. Beside her, the original monolith now rested in a museum, its glow dimmed but its purpose fulfilled. She thought about the journey, the risks taken, the sacrifices made, and the lives forever changed. Humanity still had a long way to go, but for the first time in history, it felt like they were moving in the right direction. Above, the stars twinkled brightly, reminding her that the universe was vast and full of possibilities. Somewhere out there, the Zanari watched silently, ready to guide humanity should it falter again or celebrate if it succeeded. And somewhere deep within the cosmos, the spiral continued to pulse. a timeless reminder of balance, unity, and hope.